Hi, I'm Serena Reynolds from Conceptive, and
My name is Sara Ferrer, and I am the former owner of Zoey Koko.
this is our very first podcast called Fearless and Flawed, Women in Charge.
Yes, it sure is. And Serena and I started this podcast because we actually have worked together in the past, and we decided that there was just so much business insight that we have had as female entrepreneurs. And so we wanted to put together a podcast to share our insights, to share our learnings, and honestly, just a reason to get together and have fun.
We're hoping over time we'll start interviewing some really interesting women and start sharing their stories and really delving into female entrepreneurship and how we need to build that sisterhood and really get that rolling. So today I'm interviewing Sara. This is our very first podcast, so please bear with us, especially me. I'm very nervous. I'm not one for being an upfront person. Sara, on the other hand, is marvelous at this and will rock it all the way through.
We've got nothing to lose. We've got nothing to lose. That's the first step. Take your first step. You got nothing to lose.
Absolutely. I keep telling clients all the time that you just have to dive in and get on with it. So this is me eating my own words, really diving in and getting on with it. So I'm going to start off now. I'm going to let Sara introduce herself and talk about Zoey Koko and what spurred her on.
Perfect. So I should say that Serena and I actually met through Zoey Koko. So the journey really began way before I even met Serena. And I am originally from Connecticut, but I went to school in Boston. And after school, I stayed in Boston and found myself at a Boston-based spa where I worked as an esthetician for about 12 years. Really enjoyed it, enjoyed making friends with the clients, enjoyed skincare, enjoyed all the things that you would think happen at a spa, the good gossip, like I said, making friends with clients, treating their skincare problems. And what I found was over time, because I had developed such a great relationship with these clients who tended to be, adult women, over time, they'd say to me, you know what, Sara, I really trust you with my skin, with my skincare regimen, but I've got like an 8-year-old daughter or granddaughter or niece. She's sassy as heck, and she keeps stealing my makeup. I don't want her to start using makeup. I don't want her to start using my Chanel face wash, but she wants to mimic and emulate me. So what's kind of a kid-friendly skincare, self-care line that you can recommend that's fun, that's colorful, that has all the bells and whistles that she wants, but I want it to be safe. I want it to be made in the US. I want it not to give her a rash. Not to give her a rash was like the number one thing. Like, I don't want the skin irritation. My typical response was always like, just go to Claire's. Or at the time, Justice for Kids was in business. Just go to the mall, pick something up. And that's when they would tell me like, no, I've done that already. She broke out into a rash. Or, oh, I'm a little hesitant to go to those places. I've, seen some news reports that the ingredients on the label are actually not what's in the product. So I'm a little scared of what's inside of it. And so
I'm a Brit. So can you, my opinion, I looked into these as you were growing Zoey Koko. I looked into these brands and they were very grown up. They weren't so kid friendly. They kind of emulated the adults too much.
Yeah, they did. It's funny because I bought my prom necklace from Claire's. One of those very fake, over the top diamond looking necklaces that we all bought for $20. That's kind of the place you go when you want the costume jewelry, when you want, the teen type of look. It's not necessarily for young girls or tweens, or at least it wasn't back in the day. But what I think is that there's always that need for the 5-year-old to want to be 15, the 8-year-old to want to emulate her nanny, her babysitter, her older sister. So naturally, these places really draw in that 5, 6, 7, 8-year-old customer who wants to be grown. And that's where naturally, at that age, when you're 8, you have an opinion. You're not a baby. You can talk. So you're telling mom exactly where you want to go and exactly what you want to buy because of that whole factor of what are the older girls doing? And so, at the time, tween is now becoming a much more more of a niche within a lot of these stores, the tween section. But for a lot of the time, it was baby or just teen, up to 3 or 4, and then 12 or 13 years old. So what does that segment in between do? What do they do for fashion, for self-care? And remember, at that age too, these things are fun. I say skincare, but at that age, it's not about anything technical with the skin. It's about mimicking and emulating. I want to use a body lotion because this is what big sis uses. This is what mom uses. But at the same time, I want it to smell fruity and good and be glittery. And so that was really the common, Sarah, help me out. I need to be the cool auntie. Or Sarah, help me out. Like, I adore my granddaughter, but I'm not trying to buy her makeup at Sephora. So what can you recommend, knowing what the needs of the 8-year-old are and what the needs of mom or grandma or auntie is? And so that was a challenge. I'm a people pleaser by nature. So when I can't give you an answer, it irks me. It irks me. It's like, no. The answer is not going to be no. I'm going to find this product for you. And so over time, I'm like, I really don't know what's out there. And then, of course, because every born entrepreneur is too ambitious for their own good at times, I'm like, let me just create it. Does this sound, I know this is you, Serena. I worked with you. You are let me just create it. Oh, I can't find it. I'll make it up.
I'll make it. Yeah, absolutely.
The best and the worst thing about being kind of that entrepreneur is that you always see opportunity. And many times we have the I can do it better mentality, which is great until you're like, wait, how do I make a lotion? How do I put fragrance and color it? And how do I add glitter? And
what causes a rash?
Yeah. Right. Like, I know how to deal with adult skin. I'm really good at that. I'm really good at working, especially in Boston, with that Irish, sensitive, highly inflamed skin. But like, how does that translate? Yeah. Translate to kids. Oh, and by the way, it's kids. So the threshold for care is much higher, where you go, I think I know what I'm doing. I mean, I know, but just double check that this is all kosher, So the opportunity was there, but it was there, again, not because I said, oh, let me create a business to make millions of dollars. It was because I had clients who were dear friends, and I was just trying to make them the cool auntie or the fun mom or the rock star grandma. That was it. And so when I couldn't find something, I said, let me just create it. So I went to the kitchen, started making some products, and I realized very quickly, this is really hard. Like, this is hard. I know I want made in the US. I know I want organic. I know what ingredients I want, but and you have to make it look nice and package nice. And little by little, I didn't create it overnight, but it started off in my kitchen. It started off with packaging things myself in a little, a bottle off of Uline. It started off by me printing labels before I met you, Serena, the great designer. My world changed when I met Serena. We'll get there. But, I did everything that people know they have to do, but don't want to do, which is printing off the labels from your own printer, making the batch of lotion in your own kitchen.
We all have to start somewhere. I mean, this is our first podcast. This isn't going to be our best podcast, I hope.
Yeah.
It's our first. So things will hopefully improve, grow, you learn, you adapt, that's the whole point of being an entrepreneur. If you wanted everything to be the same and stable, you'd get a 9 to 5.
Totally. And also, I think sometimes too, my own reflection of it is I had nothing to lose, right? Like, it wasn't like I had a team yet. I didn't have a warehouse yet. It was just me experimenting, playing, creating. That is what makes it fun. Once we start putting the pressure of, well, I have to create in order to pay the bills, or I have to do this. There's merit to feeling pressure. Don't get me wrong. That gets the fire going, but sometimes it can take the joy out. And so when I was just creating, I thought, well, let me see if there's other people who know how to do this better than me. Okay. Now I start finding boutique manufacturers in the US who can do this and can do it really good. And I start developing relationships with them. Oh, this is kind of fun. I'm creating something great. I have a product. It smells good, looks good, feels good. Ooh, now could I work on my packaging? That's where I find Serena. But that took about 2 years. That took about 2 to 3 years before I got to that point. It was going to the little craft fairs, dragging my mom along, having her sell the heck out of whatever product of the month I was doing. I had a little thing called a pamper pouch, which was a little spa kit in a bag, very rudimentary looking back at it. But at the time, it was like my finest work. So that was the beginning of Zoey Koko, how it really came about, giving my customers something, my clients something that they could give to their young ones.
So I hate going back to the days of COVID, but I met you very early on in COVID. I'm from London and Sarah was in Boston. So we met virtually, and I will let Sarah continue.
Yes. So that's COVID. Isn't it funny how we were like, oh, yes, that thing where we were all very depressed and very confused about what was going on. That was a turning point for a lot of people for many reasons, especially in the job market.
Pivotal.
Right? That was
pivotal for everyone in business.
Everybody.
No matter what they do.
But what have we learned as entrepreneurs is sometimes those moments of desperation, fear, can become the catalyst for taking it to the next level. And right around that time I met you, because the spa I worked at, I was doing Zoey Koko on the side, weekends only type of thing. Then the spa I worked at shut down. It shut down. There's no clients. It's COVID. What am I going to do? And that's when, through just networking, talking to people in the industry, outside of the industry, one of my mentors said, you got to take Zoey Koko full time. You gotta get into retail, boutiques, toy stores. You have a kid's product, get into a toy store. Oh, and by the way, this is the way, way, way beginning of COVID, so we weren't really sure how things were going to pan out. But by the way, typically during times, tough economic times, typically kids suffer less when it comes to, toys and kid-based products, because parents are always going to prioritize kids. So that mentor said, take this into retail. Take this, go into small boutiques, put your product, in a bag, offer them a sample to try, print out a little price list. And so that's what I did. And then from there, I was like, well, if I'm going to do this, the feedback I got from the first bunch of retailers in Boston was like, we love it, but like your packaging looks a little crazy. It was all homemade. I mean, I made every label in the beginning, and the words would be stretched out because I didn't understand in Photoshop if you just expand a box. I'm like, this is great, not realizing it expands all the letters. I initially had sought a friend of mine who was a designer, a local designer. I had sought some of her help, but again, it was like I needed someone who really understood Zoey Koko, and that's when I met Serena, and that was a game changer. A true game. Do you remember when I called you up and I'm like, hey, so you do great work. I'm in retail now. I need a catalog. I need labels. I need a website. I all these things I had very rudimentary, but like, I need all this to look like we're a team of 50. Oh, and by the way, I need that done in 7 days. Remember?
We were close. Not quite 7 days, but we did it close and we worked hard.
We did. And I think, the lesson in those beginning days too was I asked for help. I asked for help with that designer friend who I had in Boston who was kind of helping me out when she had time. I asked for help when it came to, okay, why is a retailer going to sell my product or not sell it? What do I need to have available or not have available? Is this pricing too high, too low? I asked honest feedback. I took rejection beautifully because, again, I had nothing to lose. I was just happy people were talking to me. And then from there, it's like I asked one trusted retailer who really loved the concept, made in the US, all organic, natural, but still fun. I said, I can't be driving in my Honda to every freaking gift or toy store. There has to be an easier way to do this. And he was like, yeah, you're crazy. You need to use sales reps. I was like, what the heck is that? He was like, these are people who work in toys, toy reps, who you pitch your product to the group. They cover different territories. You pitch your product. They either accept you or they don't. If they accept your product line, you now have 10, 20, 30 reps in New England, in the Southeast, in the Midwest, who now are going to pitch your product to their retailer accounts. And
So I know the answer to this. How many retailers did you get into?
Well, eventually we went from 0 to 2, 2 to 15, 15 to 50, which I thought was like, what? And then that's to 850 US and Canada.
Just for everyone that didn't catch it, Sarah's former owner, Zoey Koko,
yes,
recently sold the company, which is obviously, as a business owner, that's the long-term goal for all of us, really, to be able to create something that we can sell. So what were the challenges along the way? What would you say were your biggest challenges?
The challenge.
First of all, I'd like to just take my hat off to you. Not only did you ask for help, you recognized that you needed help.
Yes.
And that's sometimes really hard to take, especially because it was moving. Zoey Koko was developing and changing, and you were hitting some of your targets really well, but you realized that it had a much bigger scope than you could give it. And that is really something that I think we all have to understand is part of business, especially if you're going to do it well.
And let me also point out, it's really easy for me upon reflection to say, hey, like I asked for help. I did. That is the truth. But I was scared. I was scared, and which I now recognize is healthy and normal. But I asked for help because I had a fear of failure. I had a crippling fear of failure. I want this to sound like, oh, it was great, and whatever happens, happens. Once you're in retail, once you have rep groups and you need to produce catalogs and assets and go to trade shows and have big banners and have a splashy B2B website, and you have to look the part, the stakes are high. And so, what I learned upon really looking back at it is, yes, the ambition to get better and to improve and needing help was there. And I truly believe it was finding not just anyone, it was finding the right people who believed in Zoey Koko. I used to think for a long time I was just lucky that I found you, that I found another team member named Abby, that I found 2 other team members, Brianna and Sue. I used to think this is just luck. I now realize like attracts like. You don't have to have all the answers, but when you're working towards something, that attracts people who go, I want to be part of that. I want to be part of nurturing this. And so the first lesson I really took away was ask for help, but also know if they're the right fit, because not everybody was along the way. That's okay. And once you establish that there's help, something I wish I had done sooner is develop a process and a system. Once you develop a process and a system, you delegate. And easier said than done, because the very thing that makes us entrepreneurs, that makes us business owners, is we are usually very good with control, with I'll get it done myself, with multitasking. I mean, we're women, so by nature, we multitask wonderfully.
Also, right? Going back to your point earlier about couldn't find what I wanted, so I'll make it myself. Straight back there.
Don't worry, I got you. Let me just spend my entire weekend in the kitchen. Your granddaughter's happy. Yeah, right. Raise your hand if that is your essence. People please, I want everyone to be happy. And so you're absolutely right. I think that lesson of find the right people, that is a mix of the skills they bring and how teachable they are. I'd rather have someone who's never, ever doesn't have a business degree. In fact, most people I hire don't have a business degree, don't even know what, a P&L is. They don't care, but they know how to follow a system, and they're trustworthy, and they feel like they're part of something. And I couldn't offer a lot in the beginning. I'm a startup. I can't give you a fat paycheck. What I can give you is if you're a mother and you say, Sarah, I can't find a job anywhere else. I'm a mom. I have these weird working hours I can do. I can look at you and go, work whenever you can. I'm just happy to have you. I can work with someone like Serena, who is a brilliant designer, brilliant. But I have to imagine through our conversations, sometimes when you're working in a corporate setting or with certain clients, they put you in a box and they say, be a designer, but follow my vision only. I looked at you and said, here's the overarching vision, create. That's your currency. Create. You are the visionary. I gave you ownership, and not just to pacify you and to make you feel good. I believe that whatever you did was significantly better than anything I could do myself. So it was relinquishing that control of, I have to do everything by myself, because that will drive you into the ground. You'll do it in the beginning. Every woman does. Every entrepreneur does. Oh, I know I need to delegate, but I'll just get it done myself. And then you have the epiphany. Sometimes that's in the form of a breakdown. Sometimes that's in the form of, some rage journaling. But that's the thing. You have to create a system, create a process. It's not the most exciting of things to do, but it's necessary. Write down what you do. Write down the system you've created that you do yourself. Teach someone how to do it. And then here's another important part. If that system is flawed, the way I do things, I think is great. I give that system to my teammate, Brianna, to ship an order. Brianna looks at that system and goes, oh, I could do this in half the time. You're spending too much time. And I go, great. Poke holes in it. Tell me how you do it differently. Or, hey, I followed your system and I failed, or I did something wrong. Great. Let's make it better. Because I think in the beginning too, again, easier said than done. We create systems. We have these babies, these things that we've done, and then we have to defend them with all of our honor. I created this system, or I created this product. And when someone goes, well, but this doesn't work, you go, nonsense. Of course it works. You have to kind of put your ego aside and go, this is not about me. This is a system to drive the business forward. So poke holes in it, encourage that. Take out all the emotion of you hurt my feelings. It's not about us. It's about the product. It's about the system. And then
grow.
And celebrate that too. I think being a leader is also, if you're going to encourage people to poke holes, positive reinforcement at the office. I mean, we had Mimosa Fridays every now and then. I don't know. Oh,
I wasn't invited.
What do we tell them? What we did every Christmas, every holiday at Zoey Koko. Tell them what we did.
Our Jim and Jammies night. So much fun.
That was the thing. You're in London. I'm in Boston. Abby was in Connecticut. We had two other team members. And I sent everyone little gin samplers. And we all dressed up in our pajamas and did gin and jammies.
We did.
And things got crazy. Things got crazy in the best way possible. But that was like, people want to be themselves. People want to feel like they're part of something. Yes, we have rules. Yes, we have systems. Yes, we have processes. I'm human. You're human. Can we also bond that if we're going to spend this much time in a business context together, shouldn't I know your husband's name? Shouldn't you know, if I talk so much about my parents, shouldn't you kind of know their names? I mean, I'm not suggesting we have to be bosom buddies in business all the time, but that understanding that like, oh, Serena has kids. Oh yeah. And her husband's super cool. That goes a long way because you feel part of something bigger than just, can you sell the product? And so that was...
We were a virtual team for most of it. You, me, and Abby. We were never in the same room. I think we were in the same room twice. And how many years have I known you for?
Yeah, I think in person, maybe, twice, 3 times.
3 times? Yeah, that's it.
That is it.
I've spent more time talking to you than I have probably my husband in that time.
Same. At some point on my, if I really added up the minutes on Slack, on Zoom, on FaceTime, it would be, I think you even topped my mom. I call my mom every day. I think it was like Serena, mom, husband, in the early years, we I think that's the thing too. And that all goes back to the learnings of systems, processes, delegate, and then trust people. Trust people to work the system, work the process, revise, and keep it moving. And that the sooner you can do that, the better. But you cannot do that if you're always micromanaging. You can't do that if you always are coming from an eye of, I could do it better. Maybe you could, but you can't be in two places at the same time. So to have someone do something 70% at the same level that you can is better than you trying to do two things at 50%. You know, it just doesn't make sense. You know, they're never going to be me, and I don't want them to be me. But if they can do 70% of what I expect, then that's me in two places at the same time. So that was, you know, that was really, I think, a learning as I talked to more female entrepreneurs. That's something hard for us. We have this thing in our brain that says, well, we have to do it all. We have to prove that we can do it. We have to prove that we're smart enough to do it. We have to prove that we're smart enough and friendly and can do it with a smile and can do it looking great. We have all these things that we kind of keep buried. And the higher the stakes become, okay, now we're in 200 stores. Now we have, you know, now I've moved into a warehouse. You know, once Zoey Koko got off the ground, I had a 2,000 square foot warehouse. Now I have employees on payroll. And guess what? It's not their responsibility to be my therapist. It's not their responsibility to say, well, you know, Sarah, tell us about the hard day you're having. It's their responsibility to show up, to do the work, to, you know, there's some tough days involved, but overall to enjoy the experience. And it's on me to figure out how to cut the check.
And that's also have to be a circle of trust. The people, we can't do this on our own. None of us do. We always have to speak to other people and not try and take it all on ourselves. Find those people that really work with you and listen to you and become your therapist in that situation.
Yes, that's exactly it. That's it. And I think too, you know, another adding on to the lessons learned is that, you know, as you grow, I think it's important too that perfectionism, you know, it's easy to be perfect when you have 2 or 3 products, okay? Because this is what we're presenting to the world. And then as you grow, it's okay, now we have 30 SKUs. Now we have 40 SKUs. Now, oh, we're in retail. They want something new every season. The dreaded, what's new for next season? What's new for holiday? And what I've learned, and actually something you've really taught me so much about, you know, packaging and design is all that is, yes, you want it to be great, of course, but better done than holding it back and never presenting it to the world. Because I would present products and packaging that looked fabulous, that people loved, but you and I would know, but that wasn't really, you know, if we just had 2 more months or 1 more month, we could have had the box do this, and we could have had this feature, or we could have had this be hologram.
Yeah, absolutely. There was always things that we could improve all the time. We could always think of what would we do better next time if we had this chance again. That's the whole part of growing. And learning and experiencing. Right. None of us go into this being the experts. You learn.
You learn by the market. You know, the same labels. I think about our unicorn body butter. That label had 3 or 4 iterations while it was on the market. You know, from the verbiage to the coloring, that's okay. These things are okay. And I think that kind of taking off that cap of, well, once it's there, it cannot be changed. It's in the market. We can't change it. Even if you're hearing feedback, oh, the colors are, you know, you're an organic line, but you have very, very, you know, bold kind of neon-y colors, or your colors are just too saturated. They're not giving that earthy, organic feel. Instead of saying, oh, you know, well, it is what it is, going, okay, I know I need to do an iteration. When's the best time to do an iteration so that we can say that, hey, we heard your concerns, and coming next winter for holiday, we're going to unveil our 2.0 packaging. The strange thing is sometimes we get so caught up in, oh, we should have gotten it done, you know, right the first time, that we never actually do the iterations. We never do the edits. And in fact, the reality is when we do the edits, when we take the feedback and put it back on the market, customers go, Oh, you listened. This is fabulous. Listen. Then you gain trust. You gain loyalty. Retailers would always say to me, there's a lot of people we cannot be honest with. They'll go, what do you think about the products? What do you think about this? What do you think about the samples? And if we tell them, it doesn't really have shelf appeal. Oof, this packaging traditionally doesn't sell in our store. They just think we're being negative Nancy's. As opposed to, I was like, here are the samples. I haven't put it through production. Even if I have, how would you have done it better? How would it sell better? Write a little list, bring it back to my team. Doesn't mean every single critique we actually implemented. Some critiques, it just is what it is. You like bubblegum pink. You look like light pink. You like, Barbie pink. I mean, at some point you're pulling hairs, but the big picture rocks. You'll hear enough that you'll say it's worth modifying or changing.
I mean, we had our vision. We had our North Star. It was organic. It was for children. That's really what we listened to all the way through when we were doing the designs, when we were doing the packaging. How could we make it be more organic? What other things could we add to the ingredients that would elevate it by 1%? That was always something that went on in our offices and our conversations, is what can we do to make this 1% better? That was instrumental to Zoey Koko at the time.
It was huge. And we, at this point, it's so easy to kind of jump into time, but like at this point, we're a couple of years into retail. We have a body butter line. We have whipped soap. We have glitter gel. We have bath bombs. We have kind of like, I always would refer to us as kind of like the Lush for tweens, the Lush for kids, kind of that really fun, but still safe, but very playful. We developed all these collections, and I can't tell you, it was how many times people said, gosh, you must have a team of like 10 or 15. Like, this is incredible that you're just coming out with catalogs, wholesale catalogs to pitch your product. Your website's updated weekly with a new hero. Your customer service, you respond within 24 hours. That was instrumental, whether it was for a retailer, our B2B client, or whether it was for our end customer, let's say like online, our B2C customer. I mean, though, at the end of the day, people want to feel like whatever product you're offering, they want to feel like there's a reason to buy. And if they have a sassy tween who loves colorful products that smell really good, especially like birthday cake, or they really love unicorn products, then it would behoove us to say, okay, we're going to come out with a unicorn line. Oh, okay, let's come out with a birthday scented line. Let's come out with a birthday gift, a birthday celebration line. We have bath bombs. The feedback is that, a bath bomb is one and done. People want to see bath bombs that are multiple use, maybe make them smaller and have more bath bombs in one package. Everyone wants a toy in a bath bomb. Put the toy in. So we had to constantly be gathering data, real-time data and feedback, because once the opportunity is gone, it's gone. You can't take 2 years to produce something, that's needed now, because then you're going to be 2 years too late. So that's where I think being small and scrappy really suited us, as challenging as it can be, because you do have those moments where you go, gosh, I wish I just had 50 people. No, more money, more problems, more people, more problems sometimes, more people that have to approve or have opinions, sometimes small and scrappy. And with 5 women on our team, we got stuff done. I mean, we did. So kudos to Serena, to the team, but it's a very long journey that one has to have faith in, and one also just has to have reassurance within a team. The team is everything, ultimately.
So for anyone starting out on an e-commerce and in the commerce world, what advice would you give them?
Yeah, advice. Oh, looking back at it, and again, my frame of work now, you've reiterated this, I have sold Zoey Koko. Zoey Koko was sold in 2024. And so I say that because I'm outside of the bubble now. I still very much, I still work with Zoey Koko. I still help to consult with it. So I'm still attached to it, but I am outside of the bubble, which these learnings and the advice I'm about to say, I think I could only get when I had one foot out of the door. And so what have I learned? What's the advice I give? Okay, well, the first thing is you don't have to do it all. You don't have to do it all. Process, system, delegate. Figure it out and then delegate. And in that, one really core thing you touched on was that everyone wants the massive win. Everybody wants to start out and they go, how do I go from 5 stores into Target? I would hear that all the time. How do I go from 100 stores? Now I want to be in Nordstrom. I'm not suggesting that's a great goal. But when you make the goal such a massive goal, you forget about the small gains, the 1% better rule. I think that I think it's a James Clear. James Clear had mentioned this in one of his books, that if you are just 1% better every day, the results compound, and then you end up being something like 37% better, at the end of the year. It compounds. This is not a new concept. It's just something that I think when we take a step back and we go, okay, instead of always trying to take that leap from 0 to 10, let's go from 0 to 1, 1 to 2. And in fact, that's necessary because I'd rather mess up. I'd rather make the mistakes. Hey, you need this on your packaging. You need this on your labeling. Oh, by the way, you need to shrink wrap your products. I mean, certain things you just don't know in the beginning. I'd rather know when I'm only in 2 stores or 4 stores, not when I'm in 800. So expect those small gains day by day, but also appreciate the beauty of not having so much on the line so quickly. Because everyone wants the Target deal, but once that Target deal comes through, there's rules, regulations, guidelines. You think stress is a real thing? Wait until you get that big corporate deal. Then it's really a big thing. And I'm not suggesting it's not worth it, but you have to be mentally prepared and emotionally prepared. Because if you're not, I've seen big deals happen to people who are not prepared and they just fell by the wayside. Great product, bad management. So that's the first one. I could ramble forever about that because I literally used to be like, we need to be international. And it's like, just start with New England, girl. Start with New England. Start with people you know and go from there. Start with a New England sales rep group. Okay. Now we're in 50 stores. Okay. Now let's try to conquer the Southeast territory. Let's take a bite of that out of that, part of the US. So small wins definitely are the goal in the beginning. Second thing, when I think about it, I mentioned the delegating. I mentioned the feeling of having to do it all. And this is going to tie into the biggest advice. In thinking that we have to do it all many times and thinking that we have to be perfect in doing it all and taking that stress and putting it on our shoulders, what happened to me, what happens to many women, and it's something to be honest and open about, is usually when we enter our home, at the end of the day, we do not leave our stress at home. We rage. Rage with a capital R. Because what ends up happening is when you're so deeply invested in something, and I'm sure, Serena, you have had those days, as wonderful and classy as you are, I'm sure you've had those days because you're human, where we go home and we expect our partner to fix our problems. I would go home with stress, and my fiance at the time, my now husband, was lovely at listening, but he couldn't fix my problem. Or I'd call up my best friend, and she was lovely at listening, but she couldn't fix my problem. I'd call up my mom, and I would get frustrated because no one understands what I'm going through. Then I'd get angry. No one gets me. Screw these people. Right? You start the rabbit hole. I'll do this by myself. So what's my advice? Find a business group. Find a fellow entrepreneur that you can laugh with, you can cry with, you can get angry with, you can punch a pillow with. Someone who goes, I get it. Because your husband, your wife, your best friend, even if they're in business, they're not going to get it. And then you're going to get angry that they don't get it. And then you're going to start nitpicking everything that they don't get in the relationship. And before you know it, crisis, not fun. Now you've got a crisis at home. You've got a crisis in friendship. You've got a crisis with whoever. And because you've had crisis in your job.
It's also important to separate work from personal life as well. And that's really hard as an entrepreneur.
Super hard.
Especially a startup.
Yeah. And it's easy for me 4 years after the fact to be like, yeah, separation. One of my major turning points, and it's very, when I reflect upon it, it brings me complete sadness that I couldn't do this, but this was a pivotal point for me. On my own honeymoon, I was working and I actually had a panic attack in the middle of my sleep in Budrum, Turkey, because there was a trade show coming up in 2.5 weeks and I didn't have samples in-house and they were delayed. Now, everyone said, you're getting married. You and Abby and the team said, we got this. That was the moment on my honeymoon where I was so upset one day because it was the deep realization that I was unable. I did not have the tools, the capacity, the process, the format, the ability to separate out work from personal life.
And what was the worst thing that happened?
That I was on the beach of Budrum, sad.
But to your business, what was the worst thing that happened to your business?
Nothing.
The
samples made it. It was fine. And even if the samples didn't make it, you would have made a wonderful mock-up of the samples on paper.
And the rest. I would have flown there and presented something amazing.
You would have.
We had your back.
You would have. And I think that's something that's, it's, I can laugh about it now, but it wasn't fun. I mean, at the time, I just remember feeling like such a freaking loser. I remember thinking, this is supposed to be my honeymoon, and I'm so absorbed with my own failure over these samples. I'm so absorbed under the kink in the process. And so that really required for me to take a step back and go, and that was a pivotal point going, I don't want to, no, I got to change something. I mean, I'm doing better. I've delegated. I have systems and processes. Oh, now I got to work on my self-talk. That's not good. Like, that hasn't actually been addressed. I've hyped everyone else up. I've empowered them. I've encouraged them. You make a mistake, I never would say, shame on you, you're fired. I go, it's working. We'll fix it.
Make mistakes.
Right. Mistakes. What is that?
What's
that? Because if you have a culture, if you have an environment where people are scared to own up to their mistakes, then people just lie.
Isn't that incredible, though, that the way that you speak to other people and the way you speak to yourself is so different? I so hear that. I feel that. The things I say to somebody else is not what's going in my own head about myself ever.
It's true. And I would wonder too, how much of that too, I mean, again, being an entrepreneur and doing this all, whether you're a man or a woman, I mean, it's hard for anybody, but I wonder how much of that comes from the female part where we just take things so personal, especially when we feel like I messed up. Oh my gosh, I have to figure this out. And it's taking it personal to a point where it just puts you in a funk. I mean, I look back now, it was a sample, Serena. It was a sample of a package. I'm not even sure. It was a beautiful, and we did get it in-house because I expedited the shipment while on the beaches of Budrum. I figured, but I guess, but what did that take away? You know what? Unfortunately, what that took away was I'll always remember that night, that panic attack in the middle of the morning. And I'm sad about it. I don't harp on it, but it's a lesson that I almost don't want to forget because it forced me to course correct my expectations of myself. If I can't even enjoy my honeymoon fully, then I need to figure out a way to manage work and personal life. And from there, I did join more business groups. I was very bad at joining business groups in the beginning because I didn't have time. I joined business groups. I got a therapist. I got someone who I could talk to. Like I really am harsh about the mistakes I make. Where does this come from? What's the process to work on this? I watched, YouTube University. I just typed in like how to talk better to oneself, how to love one. I mean, all those things that like, we're like, oh my gosh, where do I begin? Start by Googling. And then you realize.
Yeah, it makes me, sorry, I was about to say, it makes me wonder how many other women and people in business actually go through this. I myself have sat on a beach with my laptop. I have stayed in the hotel room and sent my family away so I can work on vacation, on holiday. And I've done all-nighters. I've crazy things that I would never expect from anybody else, and take it all very personally and try and overcome these issues myself, and really not give myself any slack. So after 30 years in business, I've only just started to develop this sense that I need to reach out, that I need to get help, I need to find peers that I can rely on. I've always been the one to be relied on, not. So, I take that responsibility very seriously. And so I've never found much of a reach out for myself.
Yeah. Literally, like attracts like. Hello. That's exactly why I think the universe, whoever, the business world brought us together, because it was like, we can hustle, we can get stuff done, but also the trajectory of kind of where we were deep down inside also, was very similar of like, hey, wait, we don't need to actually beat ourselves up all the time. You know that, right? Do you beat yourself up? I do too. And so that.
Yeah, you've been a great inspiration over the time. You've been such a support system.
Right. I mean, I think that it's scary because, again, it goes back to I can accept that other people are human. I can accept that other people, if you mess up and the intention is good,
still don't mess up.
Right. Right. But God forbid we do, right? God forbid we do. It's like, oh. And so it's, I don't know, Serena, there's always this kind of, these two sides that always kind of have to be balanced out, because the perfectionism, the inner voice that says, do it, go for it, you can do it. That voice is also the same voice that goes, you can't mess up, keep going. And so you kind of need both. You can't be a softie. You can't go into business going, well, everything I do is okay if I make a mistake. No, sometimes you need to be your own, your own coach and go, get it together. You need to do better. That is essential. Because I think if you go all the way to the left and all you're doing is self-care and all you're doing is positive mantras all day, you're never getting shit done. That's the truth. So there has to be that balance of, I'm hard on myself, but I also know when to pump the brake. Those two things can live together. We just need to find that point, what that looks like. I'm always going to expect a lot out of myself. That's where greatness comes from. That's why you're great at what you do. But at the same time, right. But at the same time, that greatness does end up declining when it is constantly bombarded with constant, rumination over what you did wrong, over what you could have done better. At some point, you go up, I can do this. Oh gosh, I failed, I learned. And then you keep
learn
going.
And move on. My biggest lesson is learn and move on.
Yeah.
And that's my biggest takeaway from everything that we've done together, everything I've done with other clients. It's learn and move on. Take that with you. Don't leave it eating at you. Take it with you and make it work for you.
And move on. You're right. And moving on, that's the hard part, because it's so easy to say, but it's like, whatever that thing is, write it down. I know some people who they dance it off. They got to shake it, off, shake it off, just shake it off physically. Other people are like, you know what? I'm just in a piss poor mood. I'm ending work today. I'm taking the day off. Do that. Some people need to punch a pillow. Do whatever you need to do, but do it. Do it. Scream into a pillow. Who cares? But do it. That's the key, instead of just holding it in, because you suffer, people around you suffer. You're never really in the moment. It's the weekend, you're at a party, but you're thinking about the mess up you did on Tuesday. And the mess up is so inconsequential. 99% of the time, it's a mess up that is completely fixable. If it's a mammoth mess up, yeah, We got to
Oh,
think
people
about.
don't even notice.
People never do.
You notice. You're the only one.
You and I know. I used to be at trade shows, and I could tell you. And again, we had everything polished, buttoned up, looking great. But because we're perfectionists, it would always be like, I remember one time we had a sample of a box. I'll give this example: a sample of a gift set. Design was beautiful, everything was lovely. Mwah, chef's kiss. For whatever reason, and it was the manufacturer's mistake on the sample. Usually, when you open a box, the flap goes in the back. For whatever reason, the top of the flap went in the front. It's weird to open up a box in the front. And I remember thinking, oh my God, this is so freaking, oh my God, people are going to notice. Not a single person noticed. They went, oh, this is really cute. Oh my God, we love the color. Who's your design? Is it the same designer? Oh my God, she does magic. And you know what I didn't do? I didn't go, hey, look at the flaw. Look at the flaw. Hey, pay attention to what's messed up. No. And if anyone mentioned it, which they didn't, but if anyone did, I already had my answer. Yeah, it's the sample. We're correcting it in the final product. Oh, okay, great. People just need to know we've identified it. It's going to be corrected. Fine.
It wasn't even a mess up. It was just a different format that they used. It wasn't our format. It wasn't what you wanted. It wasn't what you expected.
It still worked. It was still functional. That's this.
It worked.
But they had. And again, it's like how much of your mental energy is going to be worth huffing and puffing over it? Because I spent a lot of mental energy huffing and puffing. And then I think I spoke to you and you were like, just freaking put it out. Who cares? It's fine. It's a sample. I mean, we care, but like, we don't care enough that like, go out there and sell the crap out of it because you can do this razzle and dazzle, la, 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 and everyone's going to love it. Stop focusing. And that's another takeaway is like, remember, see the big picture. You get too focused on the small, tiny, the Pantone color should have been this versus that. Keep it moving.
And we always solved these problems. They were never big problems. They were always very fixable with a phone call to China or whatever.
Yep. All the time. And ultimately, all these lessons that we went through together, all these experiences we went through together, the overarching goal is to create value. That's why you have a business, to create value. Over 3 to 4 years, we created value. We were in several hundred stores. We were in Canada. We were a top Tween bath and body line in the US. We were on some big name websites. We were doing great volume. We created value because it was a great product. It was great packaging. The merchandising was on point. And we understood how the customer shopped in store, online. We understood the process of customer service, how to pack an order, how not to pack an order. If there was an issue with customer service, how to address it. We understood all of those things. We created value. And ultimately, in our case with Zoey Koko, that was value that someone else saw and purchased. So that's at the end of the road, at the end of the journey, whatever the laundry list is of the tiny, tiny little mistakes and setbacks, all of that really was part of the journey to get to creating value. We acted, we put pen to paper, we created products, and then we reiterated, but we acted, we did something. I know so many entrepreneurs who have great ideas on paper. And they go, but it's not right yet. It's not right. Yeah, Zoey Koko in its Pamper Pouch days in like 2018 was little janky products in a little organza bag. It wasn't right either. But it was right for someone because I did sell at craft shows. It was right for that audience. It wasn't right for a retail audience. But when I got into retail, that's when my girl Serena came in and she said, okay, girl, I got this. We're gonna elevate this now. New industry or new, forum, new look. And that's what you do.
We're just coming up on, I think we're coming up on the hour now, which is, I think was our deadline here. Yes. So just to keep it a little bit flawed.
Yes, always.
And thank you for sharing your fearless story and your flaws. So for the ums and the ahs. And so now I think, thank you for your incredible story, your journey, and let's wrap this up. Have you got anything?
Yes. And next time I'm going to be interviewing you. So this is how it works. You remember in the beginning when you said we want to interview, business women, fearless business women, flawed. Turns out so far it's a pool of two, me and Serena. So next interview, next podcast, I want to, hear your journey. Again, knowing now who you are, how you've worked with me through Zoey Koko. So I think it would be really interesting to see Serena now as the entrepreneur of her own business. And so, to whoever's listening, tune in to the next podcast where I get to play the role of interviewer. And I'm just going to be giving you the same questions and listening intently to your journey. So I look forward to that.
So thanks, Sarah's mum, for listening. You're our only listener. Really appreciate you.
Thanks, Mom, for the 100 listens. Great. You're really just getting us up there. But yes, thank you, Serena. You actually came up with this whole concept. I have to give all the credit where credit's due. Serena, you came up with the concept. You said, let's do it. We've got nothing to lose. We truly don't. If nothing else, I just spent an hour talking to a great friend. So thank you. This is the best use of my time on a Friday.
Oh, yeah.
It really is. This was my Friday night. This was. In case you're wondering, I was like, oh, let me get dressed up to see Serena.
So you should.
And well, you've seen me in much worse with the bun in my hair and in my pajamas for gin and jammies. Let's not go there.
We've all been there. We've all seen it. We've all done it.
No, we have. So until next time, we will continue the conversation about women being fearless, being flawed, but nonetheless continuing on in the spirit of entrepreneurship.
And anyone that made it this far, thank you very much for listening.
Yeah. Thanks, Mom. Maybe Dad. Maybe Dad. Who knows?
Thanks, Sarah's mum and dad. My dad.
Awesome. Thank you, Serena.
Thank you, Sarah.